All right, welcome back, everybody. 17 minutes past 8 here on Morning Live. Well, another SABC journalist has scooped a coveted award. Special Assignments Adel van Niekerk has won the Webber Wentzel Legal Journalist of the Year award in the television broadcast category. Adel won for her documentaries entitled Double Standards and Home is Where the Hurt Is. Now, Double Standards examines the handling of medical parole in South Africa's prisons, and Home is Where the Hurt Is investigates the ineffectiveness of the criminal justice system in protecting women and children. The judges lauded van Niekerk's entries as outstanding. And she's in studio with me. Good to have you, Adel, and congratulations on your work.
Thanks so much, Leah.
Yeah, I imagine, getting recognized for such sensitive issues, because they are very sensitive topics that you were working on. It must feel good for you. It
is very good. My co-producer Hazel Friedman, or should I say colleague in Cape Town, also walked away with the commendation yesterday. Yeah. So as a team, we're really proud of what we've achieved. But as you know as well, in TV, it's always a team effort. So we rely heavily on our camera crew, our video editor. So it really is a team effort to get everything to come together and make a winning documentary.
Well, it certainly is. And, Special Assignment not being your average program where you're just reporting on a story as it is. You're investigating, you're going deeper, you're digging, you're getting involved in the story. So it takes a lot more sort of hard work and I suppose a lot more guts to get the story.
I think TV in itself lends itself to specific challenges. If you don't have pictures to tell the story, you have a problem. And add to that the investigative part of what we do, it really becomes challenging to get the pictures. For example, with the prison story, we had to smuggle pictures out, smuggle visuals out of our main case study, who is essentially dying in prison. He has stage 4 cancer, and how do you tell the story to the audience? You have to get the visuals out. So it was a difficult process. It took us quite a couple of months to actually manage to get that footage out and then to relay the story. The other challenge that we had specifically with the protection order story with domestic violence is none of the case studies wanted to be identified or could be identified.
Yeah.
So kudos there to cameraman Byron Taylor, to shoot a story in such a way that we carry over the sympathy to the viewer without actually identifying anyone in the story.
I mean, give us a sense of how long you work on these stories for. I mean, if you're saying it took months to just get this footage out of the prison, how long did it take you to put this insert together?
With the double standard story on prisons, because it had its own specific challenges, it was a longer documentary. We usually have a turnaround time of 6 weeks, which if you think for 24 minutes investigative documentaries, it's quite challenging to turn that around. So with the protection order story, the domestic violence story, it took 6 weeks to get that story out, but with the prison story it took longer.
Yeah, it's a lot of patience and determination to keep pushing on at that story. Let's talk about them separately now, because I think the double standards story is it's a story that really does hit home and quite hard for South Africans, because you focusing in on medical parole and using examples of, I imagine, bringing out, quite well-known medical parole. We're talking about Shabir Sheikh, we're talking about Jackie Salibi, that are out on medical parole, but you're talking about people that are dying of stage 4 cancer that are not getting this medical parole.
Yes, the issue, of course, very controversial and very much in the media and in the public domain. And that's why we chose to specifically look into this story. We initially heard of another case study. It was a man that was also trying to get out of prison. He was very ill and he actually died a few days after he was released. But then we heard of this specific case study that we didn't want to identify. We feared that there will be repercussions for him. But we were told that he struggled. He was, for example, in a cell with other inmates. It was an overcrowded cell. He had overgrowths on his leg, of which we showed very graphic visuals in the story, because we felt it was necessary to show the viewer his daily struggles to fight off infection, for example. And then we tracked that journey of his to try and get the prison authorities to put him in a single cell. And then from there, just to get medical attention, you know, he had to rely on a barter system in the prison, for example, because the medical care was just not present. And then just tracking his journey of trying to stay healthy, stay alive, and then eventually fighting the system and taking it on to be released on medical parole.
So he is now currently released on medical parole?
We are busy working on a follow-up, but yes, I can say that he has been released on medical parole very recently.
Yeah. I mean, we were chatting off air, another, I would imagine, a highly controversial case that could see coming to light is perhaps the release of Jub, musician, in jail now, serving time for medical parole. That's another issue that could come out.
Yes. Look, I think this issue will always be controversial because of the high-profile cases that have been in the media. So it's definitely, it is case studies that we will keep watching. But I think it's very important to also tell the story of the lesser-known people trapped and battling within the system, and then under the new legislation to see if it works. Does it apply to them, or is there double standards at play? Because
there is now new legislation, and so this is something that needs to be watched quite carefully. Let's talk about your next piece, Home is Where the Hurt Is. Let's look at how did you go about uncovering the story?
I played a little bit there with the expression because, you know, you expect that home is where the heart is. It's where love would be, and comfort and nurturing. But what the statistics show us is a whole different picture, is that women and children in South Africa face the biggest dangers inside their homes. The case studies that we used were really extreme case studies. I mean, we heard horrific stories of women that were subjected to terrible violence at the hands of their intimate partners. One case study, for example, was married to her violent husband for 10 years, and during this time she was raped, she was brutally attacked. The legal expert that we interviewed for the story actually classified it as torture, what she went through over that time. And then just tracking their struggles, how to get the police to respond, for example, to protection orders, because it seems like they don't always respond. And also we had an expose in the story of where we followed one of the case studies to the family court in Johannesburg, trying to get a protection order against her violent husband. And we have a court official caught on camera saying that he's not going to grant the order. And he gave all sorts of reasons from his own personal view of why she shouldn't be protected against her violent husband. So very pertinent issues that I don't think it's a new story, but I think it's an important story that we need to keep on telling until things change.
I mean, that's really the job, is to just keep on pushing on these issues. Is that just because it's not a new story, it is a story that affects millions of lives, and I mean, if we don't highlight it as the public broadcaster, you know, it just happens in vain.
Yes.
And perhaps lessons can be learned from it. Anything you're working on right now?
As I said, we are doing a follow-up on the medical parole story. We're actually turning the focus more onto medical care inside prisons, and looking at the lack of medical care and who is to blame, you know, who is ultimately responsible. Is it the Department of Correctional Services, or is it the Department of Health?
Excellent. Well, congratulations on this award, and good luck going forwad with the rest of the programs putting together. I know you're no stranger to winning these type of awards, but just keep up the great work for here at the SABC.
Thanks, Leanne.
All right, Adel van Niekerk talking to us about her two award-winning pieces that she scooped a coveted award for. That was the Webber Wentzel Legal Journalist of the Year award in the television broadcast.